five deadliest mass shootings in U.S. history have all taken place after the year 2006. If that doesn't signal that there needs to be change, I'm not sure what does. For years, it seems like the United States has done the same thing after every mass shooting that has happened. Everyone will send their thoughts and prayers for the first couple months, and then we wait for the next mass shooting to happen to do the same thing. Change is needed, but there isn't any happening at the national level, which is one of the biggest problems facing this country. I've done a lot of research on this topic, and no matter how these shootings may vary from Orlando to Sutherland Springs to most recently in Parkland, they all share one thing in common. They could have been prevented had stricter background checks and gun laws been in place. The United States needs to enact stricter background checks to not only save lives, but to eliminate mass shootings in America. Many mass shootings could have been prevented, but due to a lack of seriousness, they occurred. It has also been shown that stronger background checks have helped communities, and weakened background checks have hurt communities. Finally, gun violence restraining orders have greatly helped communities in trouble. The United States needs to enact stricter background checks to not only save lives, but to eliminate mass shootings in America by taking gun purchase more seriously, strengthening background checks, and by implementing gun violence restraining orders in every state. First off, the fact that many mass shootings have been caused by the incompetence of individuals and the people in charge. First off, the Virginia Tech shooting, like many others after it, could have and should have been prevented. In 2005, the shooter made suicidal remarks to his roommates and was evaluated at a mental health facility. Automatically, this should have prevented him from buying a firearm because it was obvious he was seeking to harm himself and possibly others. On the federal level, this did make him ineligible from purchasing a firearm, Crowley states. The problem lies in that it is the state's job to enforce these laws, and when they don't, this is what happens. The shooter would buy a gun in Virginia legally, and the background checks didn't mention these incidents, and the shooting would be carried out in 2006. Something I found interesting about the Pulse nightclub was the fact in 2014 he was suspected of having close ties to an American suicide bomber. And while it was found he only had minimal contact with him, it is still worth mentioning that he had contact with a suicide bomber. Any person that is in talks with a suicide bomber isn't hanging out with the most upstanding members of society. Finally, in Sutherland Springs in Texas, 26 people would lose their lives because the Air Force was too lazy to do their job. While the shooter, Devin Kelly, was in the Air Force, he was involved in a domestic abuse case and was found guilty. What should have happened after this was the Air Force officer reporting the domestic abuse court-martial into a database, but that never happened, and he was able to buy guns legally. Next, the fact that stricter background checks do in fact work. They have been proven in states such as Connecticut and Missouri that they do in fact work. In 2007, the state of Missouri repealed their permit to purchase law, which resulted in a 25% increase in annual firearm homicides, Vernick reported. Critics can say that this doesn't mean anything, but studies found that Connecticut enacted a permit to purchase law. They saw a 40% decrease in firearm homicides. Studies found that firearm suicides rates went down 15.4% in Connecticut after they enacted the law, and firearm suicide rates in Missouri rose by 16.1% after they repealed the law. Finally, the importance of gun violence restraining orders. Gun violence restraining orders are also a crucial part in keeping guns out of the wrong hands. The purpose of gun violence restraining orders is they give law enforcement the power and authority to take an individual to court to take away their guns if they present a danger to themselves or others, Vernick reported. In addition, this prevents the person under the gun violence restraining order from purchasing firearms or ammunition while they are under it. These restraining orders can also save lives and could have been used to stop numerous shootings. Most notably, this could have stopped the Parkland shooter after the police received numerous phone calls about the shooter's behavior, and still nothing was done. In conclusion, taking threats more seriously, strengthening background checks, and implementing gun violence restraining orders could save many lives year after year if we implement them. I'm personally tired of seeing shooting after shooting on the news, and all these things could and should be done to decrease the chance of these shootings happening.